That's the intent, I believe, here.
Well, that wasn't the problem in the past election. The problem in the past election was due to the county list, that people's addresses weren't right on the county list. So, you know, we're fixing a problem that didn't exist. I mean, because that will exist in the future if people don't have the right address on their county list. They're not going to vote in the town of Rising Sun.
But this time, sir, we will allow them to have absentee ballots.
Or provisional ballots.
Or provisional ballots, which we did not have the last
Right.
time,
That
which was the issue.
Right, and that's a
Did
good
you
point.
address provisional ballots in here?
Yes.
Or-
Not in
Not
one
in
of the
that
later
particular
resolutions.
Not in this resolution. It's a whole package of,
Okay.
because you're right, that was
Any
it.
other comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Unanimous, 4-0. Okay, now, 05.
Town of Rising Sun Resolution 2013-05, Charter Amendment. Elected positions, qualifications, nominations, and terms of office. Resolution of the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Rising Sun adopted pursuant to the authority of Section 3 and 4 entitled Home Rule, Article 11E entitled Municipal Corporations of the Constitution of Maryland, Section 11, under subtitle Charter Amendments, Article 23A, entitled Corporations Municipal of the Annotated Code of Maryland, to amend the Charter of the Town of Rising Sun, Maryland, with a provision to address amendments to the town charter to provide for clear and specific language regarding the qualifications for the position of mayor and the Board of Commissioners, the process of declaring candidacy, and the timely notification of the community of application deadlines and filings. Section 1. Whereas it is hereby found and determined to be in the best interests of the town to amend the charter of the town to clearly define the qualifications associated with serving in the elected capacity of mayor or Board of Commissioner, and to spell out the process for declaring candidacy in terms of office. Section 2. Be it resolved by the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Rising Sun, Maryland, that Section C5 of the Charter of the Town of Rising Sun, Maryland, titled Mayor and Board of Commissioners, Qualifications, Nominations, Elections, and Terms of Office is hereby amended by amending and reenacting Section C5 in its entirety to read as follows. Section C5. Elected positions, qualifications, nominations, and terms of office. All legislative powers of the town are vested in a council consisting of the mayor and 4 commissioners, who shall be elected as hereinafter provided. A. Qualifications. The mayor and 4 commissioners shall be citizens of the United States, at least 25 years of age at the time of their election to office, qualified voters of the town, and bona fide residents of said town for at least 1 year preceding the date of their election, and shall be free of any record of criminal violations other than minor traffic violations and other such minor misdemeanors punishable by fine only. Council members must maintain principal residence in the town during his or her term of office. If there is a change in principal residence from the town, the term of the elected office shall be immediately terminated and the vacancy shall be filled as provided in Section C8 below. B. Nomination. Any citizen of the town being otherwise qualified as indicated herein, desiring to be a candidate for the office of mayor or for the office of commissioner, must file in person and submit the necessary disclosure forms under the town's ethics code, and to complete a written certificate of candidacy for nomination form as provided by the election clerk, no less than 30 days prior to the scheduled election. The election clerk shall post a notice of the filing deadline at least 7 days in advance of the final day for filing in a newspaper of general circulation at the town hall and on the town's website. The hours for filing on the final date are 8:30 a.m. till 6 p.m. If candidacy is verified, the candidate's name will appear on the ballot as submitted on the certificate. The use of nicknames, titles, degrees, or other professional designations on the certificate of candidacy is prohibited. Candidates may withdraw from election prior to the filing deadline only. Should a citizen holding one elected office, such as commissioner or mayor, decide to become a candidate for another office such as commissioner or mayor, they must resign their current position prior to becoming a candidate for the other position. C, election and term of office. The members of the Board of Commissioners shall be elected to serve 2-year terms with the election staggered so that approximately 1/2 of the board is elected every 2 years. All members of the board shall serve until their successors are duly sworn in. Section 3. And be it further resolved by the mayor and commissioners of the town of Rising Sun, Maryland, that this amendment to the charter shall in all respects be effective and observed as such upon the 50th day after the date of adoption, unless on or before the 40th day thereafter it shall be presented to the mayor and commissioners of the town of Rising Sun, or mailed to it, a petition for referendum in accordance with the provisions of sections 13G of Article 23A of the Annotated Code of Maryland. Section 4, and be it further resolved by the mayor and commissioners of the town of Rising Sun, Maryland, that a complete and exact copy of this resolution shall be posted in the municipal offices of the mayor and commissioners of the town of Rising Sun, Maryland, or some other public place for a period of at least 40 days following its adoption. And further, that a fair summary of this proposed amendment shall be published in a newspaper of general circulation in the town of Rising Sun for not less than 4 times at weekly intervals within a period of 40 days from the adoption of this resolution. Section 5, and be it further resolved by the mayor and commissioners of the town of Rising Sun, Maryland, that as soon as the charter amendment hereby adopted shall become effective, the clerk of the town of Rising Sun shall send separately by registered mail to the Department of Legislative Reference the following information concerning the charter. 1, a complete copy of this resolution. 2, the date of the referendum election, if any, held with respect thereto. 3, the number of votes cast for or against the resolution, whether by the commissioners of Rising Sun or in a referendum, and the effective date of the charter. Section 6, and be it further resolved by the mayor and commissioners of the town of Rising Sun, Maryland, that the clerk of the town of Rising Sun be and is specifically authorized and instructed to carry out the provisions of section 4 and 5 hereof, and as evidence of compliance herewith, the clerk shall cause to be affixed to the minutes of the meeting in which this charter shall have been adopted, 1, appropriate certification of publication of the newspaper in which the summary of the proposed amendment shall have been published. 2, the return receipt of the mailing referred to in section 5. Read and introduced by the commissioners of Rising Sun, Maryland, this 26th day of February 2013. So moved.
Second.
So moved and second. Any discussion about this? Why are we eliminating the nomination from the floor? I mean, people can file their ethics form in time for the election. I mean, I don't really see any big stumbling block there. You have time between then and the election to check out and make sure that they don't violate any, or file their financial statements. And I guess, well, I won't go into what I guess. Okay, is there any other comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I believe everybody voted aye, so that makes it adopted 4-0. Okay. Moving on. Resolution 2013-06, who is the master of that?
Okay.
I'll take that one, John. Give you a break. Would you like a break?
That doesn't make any difference. Go ahead.
Town of Rising Sun, Resolution 2013-06, Charter Amendment, Board of Elections, Judges, and Election Process. Resolution of the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Rising Sun adopted pursuant to the authority of Section 3 and 4 entitled Home Rule, or Article 11E entitled Municipal Corporations of the Constitution of Maryland, and Section 11 under subtitle Charter Amendments of Article 23A entitled Corporations Municipal of the Annotated Code of Maryland to amend the charter of the Town of Rising Sun, Maryland, with a provision to address amendments to the town charter to provide for the appointment of a Board of Election Judges and the process of conducting timely and efficient election processes. Section 1. Whereas it is hereby found and determined to be in the best interest of the town to amend the charter of the town to provide for the appointment of a Board of Election Judges and to outline the election process for the Town of Rising Sun. These amendments will clearly define the appointment of individuals to oversee the election process, establish terms of appointment, responsibilities and duties of judges, and the appointment of an election clerk. These changes will also establish the rules and regulations associated with the activities of the election process and to provide for poll watchers, absentee ballots, provisional ballots, and the timely notification of elections and deadlines to the community. Section 2. Be it resolved by the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Rising Sun, Maryland, that Section C6 of the Charter of the Town of Rising Sun, Maryland, titled Appointment of Election Judge, Polls to be Open, Counting Ballots, is hereby amended by amending and reenacting Section C6 in its entirety to read as follows. Section C6, Board of Election Judges and Election Process. A. Creation of the Board of Election Judges. The Commissioners shall appoint 3 registered voters in the town to act as Board of Election Judges to serve 2-year terms starting on the second Tuesday in March. The Town Board of Commissioners shall appoint 1 alternate member who may be empowered to act in the absence of a regular member on election day. Election judges shall not hold or be candidates for any elective office during the term of their appointment. Any judge may be removed for good cause by the Mayor and Commissioners upon majority vote of the Town Board of Commissioners. The Board of Election Judges shall appoint 1 of its members as Chief Election Judge. Vacancies on the board shall be filled by the Town Board of Commissioners for the remainder of the unexpired term. The compensation of Board of Election Judges shall be determined by resolution of the Mayor and Commissioners. B. Judge of Elections Responsibility. The Board of Election Judges shall be in charge of all town elections, ballot preparation, counting of ballots, and election verification. The Board of Election Judges shall decide all questions of registration of voters and the verification of candidate qualifications. The town shall provide legal counsel and an employee to serve as an election clerk who shall provide administrative, clerical, and other such duties to assist the board in performance of these duties. C. Board of Election Judges Authority. The Board of Election Judges shall be authorized to promulgate rules and regulations to implement the provision of the Charter and Town Code for the proper conduct of town elections. The Board of Election Judges may request the Town Board of Commissioners to appoint poll workers to assist election judges on the day of the election. All poll workers must be approved by the Town Board of Commissioners and shall meet the eligibility requirements of election judges and shall receive compensation as determined by resolution of the Town Board of Commissioners. D. Election Day Process. 1. Date of election. Regular town elections will be held the second Monday in June of each year. 2. Notice of election. The election clerk shall provide 30 days notice of the time and place of all elections. Notice shall be in a newspaper of general circulation at the town hall and on the town's website. 3. Location and time of elections. It shall be the responsibility of the election clerk to provide for each special and general election as a suitable place or places for voting, and suitable ballot boxes and ballots and or voting machines. The polls shall be open from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. 4. Sample ballots. 20 days before an election, the Board of Election Judges, through the election clerk, shall prepare a sample ballot listing the names of all persons who are qualified as candidates for office. Candidates will be listed in alphabetical order according to their surnames. Also, upon said ballot shall appear a condensed statement in understandable language of every referendum or other question to be submitted to the vote of the people at said election. Ballots shall follow the titling order for the referendum or other questions designated by the Town Board of Commissioners, and shall always place the proposed referendum and other questions, if any, in numerical order as indicated. 5. Campaigning and politicking zone. On the day of the election, there shall be no campaigning, canvassing, electioneering, politicking, or posting of any campaign material or other handouts of any kind in the public way or private property open to the public within 300 feet of the polling location. No person shall impede the orderly passage of voters along the public way to and from the polling location. 6. Policing. The Board of Election Judges has the authority to keep the peace and to cause any person to be removed from the polling place for any breach of the peace, for any breach of the election code, or for any interference with the progress of an election or canvass of ballots, or the ascertainment and transcription of the votes. E. Poll watchers. In order to ensure open and transparent elections, poll watchers will be permitted in all elections. Poll watchers shall complete a poll watcher's certificate as provided for by the election clerk. Poll watchers for recall elections shall also comply with Section C8 of this charter. 1. General rules and rights. Poll watchers should be respectful of the responsibilities of the election judges. Poll watchers have certain rights, and election judges are required to protect those rights. The requirement that the election judges protect those rights is not absolute. An election judge may remove a poll watcher if they are exercising those rights in a manner that interferes with the work of the election judges in conducting the election and carrying out their assigned tasks. 2. Permitted activities of a poll watcher. Poll watchers have the right to A. Arrive at the polling place 30 minutes before voting starts. They will not be permitted in the polling place until after voting starts. B. Enter or be present at the polling place at any time during voting hours. C. Remain in the polling place until all post-voting tasks have been completed and the election judges leave the polling place. D. Maintain a list of registered voters who have voted or individuals who have cast provisional ballots. And E. Enter and leave a polling place to take out information identifying who has voted. F. Bring pen, paper, food, and folding chair when it's not provided. 3. Who can have a poll watcher? Poll watchers are permitted for elections of candidates to elected positions. Each candidate to office is permitted to have no more than one poll watcher in the polling room at one time. 4. Before the polls open. Poll watchers may arrive at the polls prior to the opening of polls. Poll watchers may observe the activities of setting up the voting stations, posting of polling place signs, accounting for provisional ballots, and opening and preparing any voting units for voting. Poll watchers may verify that no votes have been checked in or have been registered. While poll watchers are permitted to observe the opening of the polls, it is important not to interfere with the work of the election judges. Poll watchers may be removed if a majority of the election judges in the polling place agree that their presence will prevent the timely opening of the polls. 5. Positioning of poll watchers. Poll watchers will be positioned near the check-in judges and inside the voting room so that each voter is seen and heard as they check in. The chief judge will determine where this position will be. If a poll watcher feels that a voter is not who he or she claims to be, the poll watcher may challenge the voter's identity. Except as described above, poll watchers are prohibited from moving around the polling place during voting hours. 6. Prohibited activities of poll watchers. Poll watchers are also prohibited from determining how a voter voted or intends to vote. Pardon me. B. Talking to any voters in the polling place or with any voters heading to vote that are within any area designated as a no campaigning or politicking zone. If a voter initiates contact with a poll watcher inside the polling place or within the no campaigning and politicking zone, the poll watcher will advise the voter that they are prohibited from talking to him or her until they have voted, and will refer the voter to an election judge if they have any questions. C. assist any voter in voting, or D, physically handle original election document or election equipment. E, using any cameras, recording or other electronic devices such as cell recorders, phones, pagers, laptops, tablets, PDAs, or smartphones. Poll watchers must be outside the polling place and beyond the no electioneering zone to use any electronic devices. F, poll watchers cannot act as voter advocates or attempt to exercise political influence while in the polling place. G, poll watchers are not permitted to have any political materials, newspapers, or news magazines in the polling place or wear anything with a political message. This includes buttons, shirts, hats, stickers, and the like. H, poll watchers should not challenge the act of an election judge. However, if a poll watcher feels that an election judge has improperly performed a task or neglected to perform a required task, they should notify the election judge and notify the candidate they represent, who can then seek whatever remedies are provided for by law. 7, arriving at the polling place after voting starts. Poll watchers are required to introduce themselves to the chief election judge, show proof of identification, and submit for record keeping an approved copy of a poll watcher certificate from the election clerk. Poll watchers will be recorded in by the chief judge. Poll watchers are to take their assigned seat. Poll watchers are to take their assigned seats. A poll watcher for a candidate must leave the polling place before being replaced by another poll watcher of that candidate. 8, after the polls close. Poll watchers wishing to observe the poll closing activities must be in the polling place before the polls close. The election judges reserve the right to deny access to any poll watchers after the polls have closed, until after the votes have been counted and the results posted. Poll watchers shall not be involved in any counting of votes, handling of ballots, or part of any questions or discussions. Poll watchers may ask to see any ballots that are in question, but are prohibited from touching. 9, removal of poll watchers. Poll watchers may be removed for violating any of the provisions in this section. F, the general provisions for voting and ballots. 1, types of voting systems. The Board of Town Commissioners shall by majority vote select the form of one of the following types of voting systems. A, paper ballots with ballots created by the town election clerk and approved by the Board of Election Judges, or B, electronic voting systems. The Board of Commissioners may rent, purchase, or enter into a contract for the use of either a state-approved electronic voting system or non-state approved electronic voting system. However, such systems must have the voter verified paper audit trail, the VVPAT. 2, state-approved electronic voting systems. In accordance with Title IX of the Election Law, annotated Code of Maryland, the State Board of Elections has certified a uniform voting system for use in polling places throughout the state and a uniform voting system for absentee voting. 3, use of non-state approved electronic voting systems. If the voting system to be used in the scheduled election is not the voting system approved by the state of Maryland, the Town Board of Commissioners will indicate to the Board of Election Judges 120 days before any town election the type of voting system to be used in the election. 4, guidelines of use of non-state approved electronic voting systems. If the Town Commissioners elect not to use the state of Maryland's approved electronic election system, the use of another electronically tabulated ballot voting system shall be governed by general rules and regulations authorized by resolution of the Board of Town Commissioners of Rising Sun, and as stated in this chapter. The rules, regulations, and conditions shall include a description of the voting system, specifications for equipment required to implement the system, procedures for the use of the system in the polling places on election day, and for the canvass of votes following the election, and provisions to ensure the following. A, the secrecy of the ballot in both the voting and tabulating process. B, a process whereby each voter is permitted to vote at any election for all persons which he is entitled to vote for as many persons for an office as he is entitled to vote for, and to vote for or against any question upon which he is entitled to vote. C, rejection of all votes for any office or measure when the number of votes cast by a voter exceeds the number that voter is entitled to cast. D, correct counting of votes on ballots on which the proper number of votes has been indicated. E, a process whereby each voter is permitted to vote by one punch or mark for more than one candidate if this method of election is required by law. F, the casting and counting of write-in votes if this method of voting is permitted by law. G, the tabulating and recording of votes for or against any candidate, candidates, or question. 5, design of ballots. The ballots and/or voting machines shall show the name of each candidate nominated for elected office in accordance with the provision of this charter, arranged in alphabetical order according to their surnames, by office with no party designation of any kind. One additional blank line for each office available shall be provided for write-in candidates. 6, write-in ballots. In order to comply with state and local ethics requirements and to ensure that all candidates are qualified to serve in office, write-in ballots will not be accepted at any election. 7, absentee ballots. Absentee voting shall be permitted in accordance with the provision of Title IX, Subtitle III of the Election Law, Annotated Code of Maryland, or with such other laws of the state of Maryland which may supersede Title IX and Subtitle III in the future. Persons unable to come in person to pick up an application for an absentee ballot may select an agent who must first fill out an absentee ballot, designation of agent form, and submit to the town election clerk for approval. Absentee ballots must be received and date stamped prior to the closing of the polls. If an absentee vote is received after the closing of the polls, it shall remain sealed in the envelope and filed with the election clerk for a minimum period of 1 year after the election date. 8, provisional ballots. Provisional ballots will be provided at all elections of the town and will be in accordance with the Maryland State Board of Elections or as set forth by ordinance passed by the Town Board of Commissioners. G, time allowed for voting. No voter shall remain within the voting booth or unit longer than 5 minutes if there are other voters awaiting an opportunity to register their vote, except that an additional 3 minutes shall be allowed if there are referendums or other questions to be voted on. H, instructions and assistance in voting. 1, instructions. With the aid of the diagrams or other electronic equipment authorized by the Cecil County Board of Elections, the Board of Election judges, if requested by a voter, shall instruct each voter before he enters the voting unit or booth. 2, assisting disabled persons in voting. No assistance in marking ballots or operating the voting unit in use shall be given except to voters who request assistance because of a physical disability or an inability to read or write English. The voter has the option to A, select anyone to assist the voter except a town employee or a candidate for town office. B, select no less than 2 election judges to assist. 3, voter assistance record. The election judges shall enter the voter's name and address on the voter assistance record in the form prescribed by the state of Maryland. If the voter has selected someone to assist the voter, the individual selected by the voter shall A, enter his, her name and address on the voter assistance record. B, sign the record to affirm that she or he has been asked by the voter to assist in casting the voter's ballot or in filling out the application for a ballot. C, assist the voter only by reading instructions, reading the content of the ballot or application form to the voter, operating the voting machine, or completing an application form as directed by the voter. D, not attempt to influence the voter or suggest in any way how the voter should vote in any contest or question. 4, voter requesting assistance after entering the booth unit. 2 of the election judges shall give him/her instructions concerning the matter of voting. No election judge shall in any manner request or suggest or speak or persuade or induce any such voter to vote for any particular candidate or for or against any particular question. After such instruction, the election judges shall retire and the voters shall forthwith vote. I, special election or referendum process. All special elections and referendums shall be conducted by the Board of Election Judges in the same manner and with the same personnel as far as practicable as regular town elections. J, control of elections. The Board of Commissioners shall have the power to provide by ordinance in every respect not covered by the provisions of this charter for the conduct of registration, citizenship, residency, nomination, and town elections, and the prevention of fraud in connection therewith, and for a recount of ballots in the case of doubt or fraud. Section 3, and be it further resolved by the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Rising Sun that this amendment to the charter shall in all respects be effective and observed as such upon the, may I dispense with the, it's a charter amendment, it's 50 days, 40 days, posting
Yes.
there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I appreciate that. That was rather
Okay.
long. I make the motion.
You make the motion.
I'll second the
Do I
motion.
have a second?
I second it.
Okay. Seconded by Travis. All right, comments?
This was the one that addressed Bernardino ballots, Mr.
I
Chairman.
realize that you didn't have to tell me. I wonder why we have to have separate rules from the county. I mean, well, there's one thing, I think we should change the date of the election because it makes conflict, and next year, not this year, but next year, there will be a conflict with because I think the Maryland Municipal League is held the same week our election is held. So that will make confusion and on who attends the meeting in case there is a change in town officials. And, you know, all this stuff is covered, or most of it is covered in the voting rules of the county and state. So I would really like to see that the election is held concurrent with the county and state elections, and on the off years, you would have to have a special election for the town. But I think that would be much simpler than this process. So, and I don't think we need, so that people know what to expect, we all operate under the same rules. So, any other comments?
I guess, I mean, to me, this is, and this is an example of home rule. I mean, we are a municipality, we can pass local ordinances as we see fit to sort of adapt more to our local needs. So that's why we're doing this.
Yeah, we can, but do we need to do it? It makes things more complex. People have to, you know, be checking more things. And, you know, I like to make things as simple as possible.
Well, unless we actually include in our charter the provisions of the Cecil County government as part of our charter, then
Yeah.
yes, we do need our own stuff, because unless we're going to include the Cecil County charter as part of the Rising Sun charter, then nobody's gonna know what's in the Cecil County charter.
Well, some of these rules on here, take for instance poll watchers. We don't currently have that on the books here. So this is kind of clarifying. And did you want to say something, Cal?
I was just going to say, one of the problems, what's important to note here is a lot of the stuff that's in all these things, the staff has reacted on its own over the years to do like the advertisements and stuff like that. That never said anywhere in here, and none of our charter ever said anything about having to advertise or let people know. The second thing is the state election board and the county election board have no jurisdiction over anything here.
Well, that's why I'm talking about home rule. I mean,
Yes,
right,
and
right,
so
exactly.
we could attempt to just say, we're gonna do everything the state and the county does in reference to election law, but they have a lot of different quirks. You know, those agencies have early voting, first of all. We don't have early voting. And so what the attorney and I did was to go into the election. A lot of this language is right out of the state election code. The poll watchers is right out of the state election code. But it was, we only pulled out the things that are germane to Rising Sun, and we eliminated or didn't deal with the other items. One of the things I would ask you to do is there are two typos in here that you have the motion on the floor. I just wanted to bring to your attention because somebody could make a motion to strike the typos out of here. let me find the first one. On page 5 of 10, section F1, types of voting systems. The Board of Town Commissioners shall, by majority vote, select from one of the following types. There's an extra THE in there, the. That word shouldn't be in there. It should be select from one of the following types of voting systems. The other thing is that some of the language that we borrowed, for instance, we went to the town of Bel Air.
What was the other?
I'm going to get to that.
Oh, okay,
A
sorry.
lot of what we borrowed here was from the town of Bel Air that has a very nice package, and that's what we are incorporating here. There's a line here on page 6 and 10, under 5, the last sentence, one additional blank line for each office available shall be provided for write-in candidates, but the next line, we're not allowing write-in ballots. So that line really should be stricken from there.
I wondered about that.
So those are just the typos, the corrections I want to bring to your attention.
There was one other typo in there that I saw, but I didn't circle it, so give me a minute. There's another typo.
Okay.
Am I wrong in the aspect of our poll watchers? We don't
No, I don't
currently have
think
anything on
No,
on
we
board?
That's subject
Back
to
to
changing
the
that
regular
vote.
corrections.
I don't think that's any controversial thing.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any more comments? It's moved and seconded that we approve this charter resolution. So, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? No? So it's 4-0, that's adopted. Okay, I think that's, takes care of all these things.
Resolution 2013-7.
We did that one.
Vote count and procedures in case of tie. Resolution of the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Rising Sun adopted pursuant to the authority of Section 3, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas, Section 1, whereas it is hereby found and determined to be in the best interest of the town to amend the charter of the town to more clearly define the counting of votes, certification of the election, and provide for recounts of ballots and procedures in case of a tie vote. Section 2, be it resolved by the Mayor and Commissioners of the Town of Rising Sun, Maryland, that Section C7 of the Charter of the Town of Rising Sun, Maryland, titled Procedures in Case of Tie Votes, is hereby amended by amending and reenacting Section C7 in its entirety to read as follows. Section C7, counting votes, election certification, recounts, and procedures in case of tie votes. The following general procedures shall be in place and used for the conduct of all town elections. A, closing of polls. The polls shall be officially closed at 8 p.m., except that all qualified voters who are then waiting in line to vote shall be permitted to do so by the Board of Election Judges. B, persons permitted in polls after closing. After the last voter has left the polling room, the voting area will be closed to all persons with the exception of the Board of Election Judges, approved alternate judges, and poll workers. The town election clerk, poll watchers still in the room at the time of the closing of the polls, and the chief of police or law enforcement designee. Paper ballot tabulation of votes. If paper ballots are used, all ballots in the ballot box will be collected, processed as follows. 1, total ballots cast. All ballots collected from the ballot box will be counted separately by each of the election judges and verified by the town election clerk. If all tallies are in agreement, the total votes cast in the ballot box will be recorded on a paper ballot master tally sheet form by the election clerk and signed by all 3 election judges. If the tallies do not agree, then the total will be recounted by each individual until the total number of votes cast is in agreement. 2, reconciliation of poll working ballots collected. The Board of Election Judges shall compare the total number of ballots cast with the number of those who have signed in to vote as shown on the poll book. Any differences found will be noted on the paper ballot master tally sheet. 3. Inspection and tallying of votes. Once the total number of votes cast is agreed and verified, the town election clerk will divide the total number of ballots cast into individual stacks of 25 votes and will place the remaining ballots in a final stack and record and announce the number in the final stack. Each stack will be recounted by the chief election judge to verify 25 in each stack and the number of ballots in the last stack. Each election judge will then be provided with an individual tally sheet to use for tallying the ballots in each stack. Using the individual tally sheet, each ballot will be inspected one at a time by each of the election judges and the results tallied on the form as indicated. A. Spoiled ballots. If a judge feels that a ballot is defective or spoiled, they shall slide the ballot out in front of them and announce that they have a spoiled ballot. The spoiled ballot will be collected by the town election clerk and kept separate and with other spoiled ballots that are collected. These spoiled ballots will be inspected closely by the 3 judges at the conclusion of the counting of all stacks of ballots and their disposition agreed upon by all 3 judges. Before moving to the next stack of ballots, each judge will announce their findings aloud. If all 3 judges concur with the breakdown in total votes cast for each candidate, then the election clerk will record these findings on the line provided on the paper ballot master tally sheet form. If the judges do not agree, the stack will be recounted using the same process until there is concurrence by all 3 judges. If concurrence has been achieved, the next stack of ballots will then be inspected and tallied in the same manner until all the stacks have been inspected, tallied, and the results concurred by all 3 election judges. The judges will then sign the paper ballot master tally sheet where indicated for results of the ballot box for each candidate, and we can change the spelling of W-E-R-E to W-H-E-R-E. D, electronic voting machines tabulation of votes. 1, where voting units are authorized for an election, when the last such voter in the polling place has voted, the Board of Election Judges shall prompt each voting unit for the voting results. A tape will print showing the election results and the number of ballots cast for that unit. After the total for each unit has been printed, the number of votes as shown on each unit's public counter will be recorded and certified by an election judge who shall sign the certification. After the certifications have been completed, the personal computer PC memory cards of all voting units are to be removed and reinserted into a single voting unit where all the individual totals will be accumulated. PC memory card shall be removed, sealed in a locked container, and transported back to the Cecil County Board of Elections. 3, in the event of a mechanical failure in a voting unit before prompting election results, the PC memory card for that unit shall be inserted into a spare voting unit provided by the Cecil County Board of Elections. 4, the Board of Election Judges shall compare the total number of votes, combination of all voting unit totals, with the number of those who have voted as shown by the voting authority cards, the poll book. E, the counting of absentee ballots. After the ballot box and votes are counted and verified as outlined above, the Board of Election Judges shall open the absentee ballot envelopes that were delivered prior to the closing of the polls. These ballots will be divided, inspected, tallied, and verified as outlined in C above. F, declaration of winners. The candidate for mayor with the highest number of votes shall be declared elected as mayor. The required number of candidates for commissioner with the highest number of votes shall be declared elected as commissioners. G, preparation of the general return sheet. 1, if using a paper ballot voting system, when inspection and tallying of all the paper ballots and absentee ballots in the polling place have been completed, the Board of Election Judges shall then prepare in ink a general return sheet, reporting the results listed on the paper ballot master tally sheet. The votes registered by absentee ballot, the votes cast for each candidate, the votes cast for and against each question, the total number of votes and voters who have voted as shown by the list of voters, and then all members of the Board of Election Judges shall sign the general return sheet. 2, if using an electronic voting system, When the canvass of all voting units in the polling place has been completed, the Board of Election Judges shall then prepare and ink a general return sheet reporting the votes registered on each unit, the votes registered by absentee ballots, the votes cast for each candidate, the votes cast for and against each question, the total number of votes and voters who have voted as shown by the list of voters, and the number who have voted on each unit as shown by the public counters, and also the number registered on the protective counter or device of each unit immediately prior to the opening of the polls and immediately after the closing thereof, and the sealing of the units. The number or other designation for each unit used shall also be entered thereon, and then all members of the Board of Election Judges shall sign the general return sheet. 3, if any judge shall decline to sign a general return sheet, he shall state his reason therefore in writing, and a copy thereof signed by himself shall be enclosed with the general return sheet, and therefore should have an E on it. 4, a duplicate of the general return sheet shall be directed to the Circuit Court of Cecil County and to the Town of Rising Sun Board of County Commissioners. The general return sheet shall be kept by the Board of Election Judges. The registering counters of the voting units shall remain exposed to view until said returns and all other reports have been fully completed. H, if using electronic voting system, each voting unit is to be sealed. The number of the seal which has been placed upon each voting unit, the number of the seal which has been placed upon each voting unit is to be recorded and certified by the Board of Election Judges. The seal number is to be kept in the town election clerk's office. The Board of Election Judge shall promptly deliver the key of the voting unit or voting units, as the case may be, enclosed in a sealed envelope to the Cecil County Board of Elections. Said envelope shall have endorsed thereon a certificate of the Board of Election Judges. The voting units are to be returned to the Cecil County Board of Elections warehouse. The units are to remain sealed until the final counts have been duly recorded with the clerk of the Cecil County Circuit Court office, and verification of that recording has been received by the town election clerk's office. I, proclamation of results. 1, before the general return sheet has been signed, in the presence of any candidates and any person appointed by an absent candidate to represent him in his absence, the Board of Election Judges shall, after closing the polls as provided in Section A, herein proceed as follows to proclaim the voting results. A, an election judge of the Board of Election Judges or the town election clerk, if designated by the Board of Election Judges, shall read and announce in distinct tones the results of the election in the presence of the general public, all candidates or their duly designated challengers, all candidates or their duly designated agents, and would that be challengers, assembled at the town hall to hear the results? Because I don't think we'd have duly designated challengers. The vote count for each, B, the vote count for each question or referendum on the ballot shall be read. J, the right to verify announcement. After such proclamation, ample opportunity shall be given to any person lawfully present to compare the results so announced with the paper ballot master tally sheet, counter dials of any electronic voting units, or the printed or photographic record thereof in the case of the unit so constructed as to furnish a printed or photographic record of the setting of the counters and the numbers registered thereon, and with the absentee ballots, and any necessary corrections shall then and there be made by the Board of Election Judges, after which the door or other cover of any electronic voting unit shall be closed and locked. K, contested elections. 1, elections using electronic voting system. If within 10 days after an election, the Board of Election Judges shall receive notice in writing from a candidate who contests the results of an election using electronic voting machines, then such Board of Election Judges within 5 days from the receipt of such notice and in the presence of the principals involved in any such contest or their authorized representative shall proceed to inspect and examine the voting units containing the votes cast for such contested office, and shall make a record of the votes for such office upon each such unit. After such inspection, examination, and recording of the results thereof, the results shall be documented and announced, and any changes in the declaration of declared winners will be binding, and the voting units shall be released and made available for use in any succeeding elections. 2, elections using paper ballot system. If within 10 days after an election, the Board of Election Judges shall receive notice in writing from a candidate who contests the results of an election using paper ballots, then such Board of Election Judges within 10 days from the receipt of such notice and in the presence of the principals involved in any such contest or their authorized representative shall proceed to perform a recount and inspection of all ballots and absentee ballots cast in the election. The process of the recount will be the same process outlined in section C above. After such inspection, examination, and reporting of the results thereof, the results shall be documented and announced, and any changes in the declaration of declared winners will be binding. 3, each party shall have the right to appeal the results of contested election to the circuit court. Said appeals to be taken within 30 days from the date of the final decision. The appeals should be heard and decided by the circuit court on the record and not the de novo. L, provisions in case of a tie vote. If any number of candidates for mayor and commissioner receive an equal number of votes in the highest amount, the mayor and commissioner shall assemble immediately and set a date for a special election for only those positions in which there is a tie. This election shall be held within 14 days of the declared tie, and public notice will be provided at least 5 days in advance of the special election. Previously collected absentee ballots received prior to the close of the polls will still hold standing, but no new absentee ballots will be accepted. If the special election results in another tie vote, the Board of Commissioners shall vote to decide the election, which vote shall be the final vote. Section 3, be it further resolved, the 50 days and the 40 days. Section 5, the mailings and section, the mailings and the copies. And read and introduced by the Commissioners of Rising Sun this 26th day of February 2013. So moved.
You've heard the reading of resolution 2013-07,